To bring all of this to life, let's now ground the framework in a few concrete real-world examples. So far, we've talked about assets, liabilities, necessities, and facilities as concepts, but their real power shows up when we see how things move across these quadrants. In the examples that follow, we'll look at how ordinary needs get assetized, how simple facilities evolve into value multipliers, and how thoughtful design and timing can completely change the economic role something plays. These are not abstract stories. They are practical cases that show how value is built, upgraded, and sustained in the real world. As we walk through them, keep one question in mind: what changed, and why did value increase? Let's step into this framework from the point of view of a home buyer because it's one of the clearest places to see how assets and facilities evolve together. At the most basic level, a home as an asset is simple: land, a constructed building, and an apartment you own. But living in a standalone house also meant owning everything around it: security, maintenance, repairs, and daily upkeep. That burden was heavy, and that is exactly where the first evolution happened. The idea of a managed society emerged. Suddenly, perimeter security, shared maintenance, and resident welfare were handled collectively. What changed here was not the core asset, but the facilities wrapped around it. These facilities solved real problems, and for a long time, that alone was enough to make apartments highly attractive. Then this model became normal. Almost everyone started offering managed societies. And when something becomes normal, differentiation begins to matter. Builders had to ask, what more can we add that people will value? That's when amenities entered the picture. Clubs, gyms, indoor and outdoor sports, shops, clinics, these were still facilities, but now they weren't just removing burdens, they were enhancing lifestyle. The asset itself started feeling richer because the facilities expanded what life inside the asset could look like. Competition didn't stop there. A new layer came in, the idea of luxury community homes. This wasn't just about more facilities outside the apartment, but elevated experiences inside it. Superior interiors, premium materials, jacuzzis, curated aesthetics. At this point, facilities didn't just support the asset, they redefined it. A new asset class was born, backed by a carefully designed stack of facilities that justified its positioning. This entire journey, from independent houses to managed societies, to amenity-rich communities, to luxury homes, shows a powerful pattern. New asset classes don't appear magically. They are created by layering facilities that solve real problems or resonate with real aspirations. When facilities consistently elevate value, perception, and experience, they stop being optional add-ons and become the foundation of the next generation of assets. Let's look at a very grounded, real-world example, one that beautifully shows how value can move across quadrants through assetization. Imagine the actor here is a scrap metal producer. For the producer, scrap metal is not a success story. It's a headache. It's a byproduct of manufacturing. It takes up space, it needs handling, and left unattended, it even creates compliance and safety concerns. In other words, scrap metal clearly sits in the liability zone. The primary goal of the producer is simple: get rid of it. Now enters the first shift. Scrap dealers step in and offer to buy this waste, even if only for a nominal price. From the producer's point of view, something important has already happened. A cost and burden has turned into a small recovery. The liability hasn't fully become an asset yet, but it has crossed into a borderline asset zone. The producer clears space, reduces risk, and recovers some value. That alone is meaningful progress. For the scrap dealer, however, this same scrap metal looks very different. It is not waste, it is raw material. The dealer aggregates scrap and channels it onward to recyclers. This is where the second transformation happens. Recycling companies have the capability, the facility, to re-engineer scrap into usable metal. They melt it, purify it, reshape it, and bring it back into the industrial ecosystem as a functional input. At this point, the journey comes full circle. What began as a liability at the producer's end has now become a true asset in the form of re-engineered metal. The recycler, in effect, becomes a value-enabling facility for the original producer's ecosystem, even if indirectly, because their capability makes this entire conversion economically viable. This example highlights a powerful insight. Assetization doesn't always require the original actor to build new capabilities. Sometimes value is unlocked through ecosystem alignment. When the right facilities exist around a liability and incentives are aligned across actors, waste can move, transform, and reemerge as value. That's not just recycling, it's value evolution in motion. Let's take one more very relatable example, this time from the perspective of an unused car owner. On paper, owning a car is an asset, but in reality, when that car is barely used, its behavior starts looking very different. It sits idle most of the time, occupies valuable parking space, needs periodic engine starts just to stay healthy, demands maintenance even when it's not driven, and quietly loses resale value with every passing month. What was once an asset slowly drifts into the liability zone, not because the car changed, but because the usage context did. Now here's where the interesting shift happens. A new facility enters the ecosystem, car on rent platforms. These platforms recognize a hidden mismatch, cars that exist but aren't used, and people who need cars temporarily but don't want to own one. By connecting these two sides, they fundamentally alter the value trajectory. The unused car is taken into a rental network where it gets regular usage, structured maintenance, quality checks before and after each trip, and proper handling through defined agreements. The renter gets exactly what they need, a car at the right place for the right duration, without ownership overhead. The platform manages trust, compliance, payments, and operational discipline. And most importantly, the car owner starts receiving income. At this point, something powerful happens. The car is no longer a draining obligation, its idle cost is neutralized, its operational health improves through regular use, and it begins generating returns. The liability conversion is not just stopped, it is reversed. The same car re-enters the asset quadrant, not by changing ownership, but by changing how value is accessed and shared. This example shows a critical insight. Many liabilities are not inherently bad assets. They are misaligned assets. When the right facilitation layer is introduced, dormant value wakes up. Assetization, in this case, doesn't come from buying something new, but from designing smarter ecosystems around what already exists and by preventing a liability conversion. As we step back from these examples, a clear pattern emerges. Value is not fixed, and categories are not permanent. What truly matters is how well something is positioned within its context, how intentionally it is connected to the surrounding ecosystem, and how thoughtfully frictions are removed or transformed. Assets gain strength when they are supported by the right facilities. Liabilities lose weight when they are rechanneled through better systems. And everyday needs evolve when someone sees a gap and designs for it with clarity and purpose. This is the real takeaway, not the examples themselves, but the lens they sharpen. When we learn to observe movement across these quadrants, we stop seeing the world as static and start recognizing it as full of latent potential, waiting to be unlocked through insight, design, and deliberate action.